People spend an enormous amount of energy in the effort to prove that they matter. They work hard, they have goals, they work harder and harder and harder, and thinking, I can just do this if I do enough, if I'm powerful, if I do this, if I win, then I'm going to matter. I'm going to be deserving. People will see that. I will have stature. I will have power. I will have safety. And it's really interesting is that they do anyway. All that external way of trying to demonstrate your worthiness, demonstrate how much you matter, your adequacy, even your lovableness, what happens is it misses a really big thing. It misses something that I call inherent worth. Ultimately, what you discover is that all social mammalians have this trait called inherent worth. It's what drives social mammalians to have been as successful as they are, because what they do is they take care of their young. They live in groups, and particularly those young are really important. Now, from a biological perspective, they're important to be able to push genetic material of the species into the future and have better adaptation. Okay, fair enough. But at the same time, is social mammalians, what they're still doing is they recognize the inherent worth of the young and are willing to go out of their way to protect it. Let me give you an example. If you ever watch a wildebeest herd being attacked by lions, it's a dangerous sport. It's a very dangerous thing for the wildebeest. And what you'll discover as they're moving in a herd, you will see the mothers and the children coming to the center where there's more protection, because those babies, those young, are that important. That's the future of the species. What you'll see is males and the infirm going to the edges of that herd. They're putting themselves in harm's way. Okay? Why? In biology, we call that altruism, where you're willing to put yourself in risk for the sake of another. This time, it's species, it's evolution. It's about being able to protect the species through time. Okay? Now, let's remember something. We're, human beings, are social mammalians. We live in groups, we live in clans, we live in tribes. And what happens is that the children are so important that we're willing to go through all sorts of ends in order to make sure that they're protected, they're taken care of. And again, what you start seeing is people going out of their way, changing and doing things out of the ordinary to be able to find and help that child grow up. What they're witnessing is that biological part called inherent worth. The offspring are so important that they'll go crazy and sleepless nights to be able to produce the next generation. Okay? That's what it looks like on a biological level. That's inherent worth. Now, what you can also say is that, well, Randy, I understand inherent worth is something more spiritual. I'm good with that. I practice that way too. However, what I want you to recognize, whether or not you're looking at it from biology or whether or not you're looking at it from a higher model, the point is this, is that we human beings and each one of us are endowed with this element called inherent worth that people can sense. And the wildebeest demonstrate that, but understand there's plenty of examples, not just in families. Right now, there's a war that the Ukrainians are fighting with the Russians. Retired military people from the United States are volunteering on their own dime to put them in harm's way to fight with the Ukrainians. They see the worth of those Ukrainians and they want to help protect. They want to be with them. But it's not just that. What you're seeing is all across the board that, for instance, when I was in heart failure and had a heart transplant, we were amazed that people we hardly knew, like our neighbors, suddenly started leaving food, started doing this, started taking orders for what we could get from the grocery store, because I didn't have an immune system and Dolores couldn't go out because she might bring back a cold. And then another one mowed my property, no small feat. And all of a sudden, these people didn't know us. But what they did is they experienced the inherent worth of us, and they were willing to act on our behalf. That's the inherent worth. What I want you to recognize is that it's already indwelling. It's not something you go out and earn. It's not something that you accumulate power and have. It's not any of that. It's already inherently there. How? I'm going to give you a view of the way I understand all this. There came a moment in the distant past where the supernova blew up. And, it superheated everything, and suddenly helium and hydrogen in this nuclear furnace forged into elements and were spewed across a vast tract of the galaxy. And then, over time, those particles started coming together. And particularly for some unknown reason, iron lay at the very core of this planet called Earth, and it was molting. It generated a shield that you may know as the Aurora Borealis, but it's also known as the Van Allen belt. It's what protects us from cosmic radiation. Okay? And then, so you have this planet evolving. And then about 600 million years ago, life began. However that happened, we're not there. But out of the start of that life, about 6.5 million years ago, our first human ancestors showed up, the hominoids. And again, they're social animals, and what they're doing is they're protecting their young, and they're working together to be able to survive and move. Finally, though, that moves on, and in evolution, there came a moment in the not-too-distant past where human beings became capable of recognizing that they are conscious creation. This process of creation that went on, whether or not through Big Bang or through a miracle, ultimately cultivated into a very smart animal, creature, human being, that was also conscious. And it could look out and begin to see creation and to begin to see, wow, I'm part of all this. Something organized all this stuff to a point where either simply by random mistakes or by some plan, we came together to produce conscious creation. What a gift. What a massively great piece of fortune. What a spiritual gift. What a blessing. What a great piece of luck. However you view it, what I ask you to do is think about showing up with conscious creation. You get to see the wonder of creation, and at the very bottom of that, we're built to be in relationship with something much greater than we are. We're part of that whole, and we're individuals, and what happens is when we separate from that and we start thinking dualistically, what happens is suddenly we separate ourselves from that inherent worth. A lot of times it's in our family of origins. I certainly can experience that. And we forget, we push aside that inherent worth that lives as part of us. However, at some moment it can start arising again, and we don't want to change. We're not asking you to change. I'm asking you to become who you are. I'm asking you to go back down and find this inherent worth that's at the very core of your being, the ground of your being. And what I'm going to ask you to do is start waking it up. You don't have to use visualizations, no affirmations, no trying to train the subconscious. No, what you're doing is you're taking something that's already there, your inherent worth, up and beyond your performances, up and beyond your competencies. Because ultimately, this isn't about you doing well and winning. You already are inherently worthy. This is about your separating your competencies, your performances, and recognizing, they're performances, they're not me. They show how competent I am in an area, but they don't show my being and my inherent worth that is separate from my performances. It just is. It came out of that supernova. It came out of that wildebeest herd. It's that inherent worth that dwells within all of us. And what I'm asking you to do is to find that part and to bring it forward into the world and start saying, no, this is the ground of my being. I am inherently worthy. just because. Because the stars lined up that way. Because there was a higher being that willed me into being. Because I evolved that way. Whatever. The point is get to the moment of conscious creation. That's the piece. And you start going, okay, I'm not like the wildebeest. I'm a human being. I can take this inherent worth and start developing and taking it to different areas. I can start taking the possibility of who I can be and organizing that into a self that can channel just the gratitude that I hope you have about you having landed in this conscious creation. What a great thing. And what I'm asking you to do is to start saying, oh, I can cultivate this. I can start producing my being out of that rather than all the other fictions and stories that I've told myself. So here we are, friends. Come and learn. This is the first step into the adventure of organizing the self into higher functioning, into empowered selves. What you're recognizing is the ground of your being starts with inherent worth. You're already worthy. You don't have anything to prove. All you have to do is claim what is already yours by birthright. Come and learn, friends. Come and learn.